everyone. This is the great Roberto coming at you in live action. Alright, this is, believe it or not, a trip report again today. This is just over a week and 2 days after the 6-gram psilocybin death trip. It's the first day of spring today, vernal equinox. And I really wasn't going to take any mushrooms at all today. Because it's too close. In my opinion, it's too close to the last time. I don't want to be one of these guys that take mushrooms every week. You know, I just don't think, I think that's too much. I think a more suitable would be once a month, or longer, stretch it out. And the only reason I did is because, for one thing, I just took 2 grams. I just took 2 grams, I chewed them up, and that was it, And I was like, the only reason I did is because I was thinking about, the people who do ayahuasca sessions, they go, they do multiple trips in the course of 3 days, 2 or 3 days. They'll take ayahuasca every night, for however many days they're there. So I was like, oh, okay, so maybe it's not an issue of being abusive or not respecting the message and shit. So I was like, okay. So I did. I just, knowing it was going to be light. And one of the reasons I wanted to do it too is because to explore different elements too, like this, the sexual element of mushrooms, because that's a whole different element too when you're on it. And I think with the higher doses, because I know the 6-gram trip I just took, the last thing I wanted to do, the last thing on my mind was fucking sex at all. During that, because it's just too fucking much. It was just too much, fucking too deep. It was only a matter of hanging on, and then when you come back trying to process what happened, the last thing I wanted to think about was sexuality at all. It's too high and too much. And now, one thing I want to mention, there was a guy today I saw on the internet. He has some weird name. He's a big black guy. He's talking about taking, if you can believe this, 20 to 30 gram dried psilocybin trips. I'm like, what the fuck? Dude, I can't even imagine. But he's saying it's not just him doing it, it's the group that he's with, and they all do it. Housewives, women, men. This guy's a pretty big guy, but he's not fat. He's just, pretty big, but, still, at that dose, it wouldn't matter if you were a fucking elephant. I don't think. Honestly, because, and let me just put it in perspective. Today I took 2 grams, and honestly, 2 grams. It's almost like I wasn't even tripping. It was good. You get the insight, you get the, sort of like the logos thing going on a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. I really wouldn't even call it a trip, and I really wasn't going to even document it because it wasn't so uneventful. But the only reason I am is because it is important to document it and sort of give your report, good or bad or whatever. So, but I wouldn't even call it a trip, 2 grams. It's sort of just like a neat, sort of fun time a little bit, but I wouldn't call it a trip. As a matter of fact, during the experience, I could have done anything at any time if I had to. I could have drove in my car if I had to. I could have went and worked out if I wanted. I could have done anything if I wanted to. There was never that sense of just vaporizing or dissolving into the matrix, like on the 6-gram trip. And now the difference between, this is what I'm thinking about. See, I've done 2 grams today. I've done 3 grams. I've done 3.5 grams. I've done 7 grams. And I've done 6. Now the 7 and the 6 were like ego-shattering, ego-dissolving trips that was scary and hard. The 2, 3, and 3.5 gram trips were just enjoyable experiences. So where is that line? Where is the line? It's somewhere between 3.5 and 6. Is it 5? Is it 4? What's 4? So 3.5 to 4 is only half a fucking gram. And 4 to 5 is just one, a gram and a half difference. But people call 5, Terence McKenna, what he calls the heroic dose is between 5 and 7 grams. That's what he calls the heroic dose. so I mean, is it really just a little, that small difference enough to throw you over the edge? But 3.5 grams wasn't rough at all. I mean, when I took that, it was, when I took the 3.5 gram trip, I was scared because before that I was getting my ass kicked with high doses and then DMT and all that craziness. But it ended up being a very pleasant trip. And then the 3 grams, like 3 weeks later, was a trip I took, and that was just really fun. And today's trip was fun too. A lot of laughing and shit, making jokes and having a good time and stuff like that. But and all that. But then I'm thinking, okay, if it's so sensitive at these lower doses, the difference of a gram can make such a, Herculean leap in fucking experience. Meaning, even from 3.5 grams to 6 was like, the 6 gram, really, the difference is like orders of magnitude difference. So this guy's taking 20 to 30? I'm like, what the fuck, dude? How? And he even said it. He didn't get into his experience of what he saw and the details of the trip. It was sort of like a lecture about. It was a quick lecture. It wasn't even really in depth. But he's saying it doesn't matter. Some of the things that people talk about, like set and setting and shit like that. Even he said that at that dose, that doesn't matter. What your set and setting is. At that point, you're gone. He said. The only thing is about safety. You just don't want to be in a dangerous position where someone can take advantage of you or rob you or kill you or whatever the fuck. But he said that at that moment it doesn't matter where you are because you're gone. And I can believe 20 or 30 grams. I mean, you are diving off the deep end with that. Man alive. I would like to hear some in-depth trip reports about that dose, but honestly, I would say 2 grams is a waste of time, almost, really. I mean, if you're just going to take 2 grams, just don't even, I would say the minimum is 3. 3 to 3.5 is the lowest that you really want to be going. Otherwise, why? What are you doing? Smoke a joint, seriously. Really, if that's all you want to do, really, just get fucking baked. Smoke a joint with someone, if that's all you want to do. Because you're not going to see anything. You're not going to have any, Yeah, it feels good. But the sexuality element, let me get into that real quick, It's, sexuality is different and I would say only the lower dose. This only applies to the lower dose of mushrooms where you're not going to lose your mind. But it's not about, because, you're more likely going to have a hard time keeping yourself hard, in that experience, and you're definitely gonna, you will get hard and shit, but I guess every guy is different. I mean, I guess you can't say, depend on your health, depend on a lot of just whatever, but, it's gonna be really hard to ejaculate, that's for sure, and but it's not gonna be about that. It's gonna be about sensations. It's gonna be about touching. It's going to be about physical contact and the beauty of the physical contact, like the kissing, the touching, the feeling, and all that is the main thing you're going to be getting out of it. Not just the urge to bust a nut, as they say. But it's different sensation. It's like a fucking different feel. It feels really, really good. Now, I've heard people say that MDMA is a very, kinesthetic type of drug where all you want to do is touch and shit like that. I've never taken that, and I don't plan to, but I wonder how similar it is, If anyone out there knows anything about MDMA, feel free to fucking comment. But, so it's a quick trip report, nothing major. I'm only documenting it. I wouldn't even call it a trip. It's just sort of like, a neat little experience. So it's, mushrooms are weird though. Mushrooms are very, very, very strange. Mushrooms can knock the shit out of you at higher doses, and I can only imagine what happens at those. My 2 high dose trips of 6 and 7 grams were like out of this world crazy. Especially the 6 one I just took was insane. I was saying things like, you can watch the trip reports, but I was saying things like, you don't know what madness is until you find yourself in a place where even beauty makes no sense. And I was saying that on 6 grams. I can only imagine doing 25.